The passenger in white. They say some roads remember. Not the kind of remembering you read about, the kind you feel. A weight behind the wheel. A silence that listens back. I never believed in that sort of thing. But there's a stretch of road outside Chicago, Archer Avenue, where something changed me forever. It started with a drive. A quiet night. A figure by the roadside. And a ride I should have never offered. My name is Ben Holloway. I was an ER nurse for almost 7 years, night shift, mostly. If you've ever worked nights in a hospital, you know the kind of toll it takes. Your body adapts. Your soul doesn't. I lived alone in a studio apartment west of Chicago. Didn't have much. Just quiet. Routine. I told myself I liked it that way. But after 12 hours of blood, beeping monitors, and holding hands as people slipped away, the drive home became my ritual. That stretch of road. It was my buffer. Just me, the hum of the tires, and the halo of street lamps in the fog. And every night, I passed a long, black iron fence. A cemetery that always seemed colder than the rest of the world. Archer Avenue. Locals had stories, of course. You know how it is. Bored teenagers, old drunks at bars, a friend of a friend who swears something followed them home. I didn't believe any of it. I believed in trauma. In grief. In sleep deprivation. But belief doesn't matter when something's already chosen you. It was just past 2 a.m. The kind of cold that doesn't just numb, it seeps. Snow drifted sideways in the wind, veiling everything in soft white static. My windshield was fogging again, the heater failing to keep up. I cracked the window for just a second, and that's when I saw her. She stood by the roadside, just beyond the reach of my headlights, motionless, framed by the skeletal trees behind her. Mist coiled around her legs like it didn't want to let go. She was beautiful. But in a way that didn't feel quite real. She wore a white dress. Vintage, maybe, cinched at the waist, sleeveless, and just long enough to catch the wind as it danced. The fabric shimmered like snow crystals under moonlight, flowing gently over her figure. Her skin was pale, flawless, almost translucent, as if sculpted from the same cold mist that surrounded her. Dark curls fell past her shoulders, tangled slightly by the wind. She had the kind of face you'd expect to see on an old oil painting, soft features, high cheekbones, lips the color of fading roses. And her eyes. They were the first thing that unsettled me. Gray. Not cold, not empty, but stormy, as if holding back something violent just beneath the surface. She didn't wave. Didn't flinch. She just stared into the windshield, at me, like she'd been waiting. I don't remember deciding to stop. I just did. She stepped forward, soundlessly. Opened the passenger door like she'd done it before. Slid in without a word. There was no weight to her. The seat didn't shift. But the temperature dropped by 10 degrees instantly. The vents blew nothing but cold. She sat with her hands folded in her lap, posture perfect. No phone. No bag. No coat. Where to? I asked, trying to sound casual, even though my knuckles had turned white around the wheel. She turned her head slowly, like every movement cost her something. Just past the cemetery, she said, her voice soft and distant. Like it had been whispered into the air years ago and finally reached me now. We drove. The only sound was the tires rolling over the snowy road and the low hum of the defroster struggling to keep up. The silence stretched. And with every mile, something inside me pulled at her, not just curiosity, but gravity. She didn't seem dangerous. She seemed sad. Like a memory that wanted to be remembered. You out here alone? I asked. Aren't we all? She replied, not bitter, not joking. Just, true. You're not exactly dressed for the weather, I said, trying to smile, glancing sideways. She smiled faintly, but didn't look at me. Cold doesn't bother me anymore. That stopped me. I couldn't explain why that phrasing rattled me. I tried to shake it off. That's a nice dress, I offered. It was a gift, she said. For a night that didn't go as planned. There was a pain buried in her words. But also, resignation. The kind of sadness that no longer asks to be healed. She turned toward me then, just slightly, and asked. Do you believe in second chances? Her voice had changed. It wasn't hollow. It was hopeful. Maybe even pleading. Sure, I said, my voice quieter than I expected. Everyone deserves one. She smiled. And this time, her smile lingered. And then, the radio sputtered. A flicker of static. A note from some forgotten song. Then nothing. We were just approaching the cemetery gates when the air shifted again. The engine sputtered. The temperature inside the car dropped sharply, the windows fogged in an instant, like the whole world exhaled at once. I slowed down, just a little. Something didn't feel right. Then. Silence. I glanced at the passenger seat. It was empty. No sound. No door opening. No movement. Her seatbelt was still buckled. For a moment, I just stared, my mind scrambling to make sense of it. Had she slipped out? But how? The door never opened. The locks never clicked. I stopped the car on instinct and looked around. And there, across the road, inside the cemetery gate, I saw her. She was walking slowly through the snow. Her dress moved with the wind, but her body didn't sway. Her back was to me, her hands still folded in front of her, calm, as if returning home. I opened the door, took one shaky step onto the road, but stopped myself. My breath hung in front of me in thick clouds. My heart pounded in my throat. She didn't look back. I don't remember driving home. Everything after that was a blur. I just arrived. And when I finally lay down in bed, eyes wide open in the dark, one thought kept clawing its way back to the front of my mind. Who was she? Where did she go? And why do I feel like I know her? I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, not her face exactly, but the outline of her in the snow, walking toward those iron cemetery gates. I tried to tell myself I imagined the whole thing. Maybe the exhaustion had caught up with me. But I couldn't shake it. And I couldn't forget her. The next night, just after 2 a.m., I left the hospital, drove the same route, and there she was. Same place. Same dress. Standing near the edge of the road, calm, expectant. This time, she waved. And this time, I didn't hesitate. She got in like before. No words. Just that same quiet presence. Long night? I asked, trying to sound casual. She smiled faintly but said nothing. What's your name? She looked out the window. You ask a lot of questions for someone who barely speaks, she said softly. I laughed, more from nerves than humor. That's fair. The third night, she was already waiting when I arrived. The fourth, she was humming when she got in. A slow, haunting melody I didn't recognize. We didn't talk much. But I started to feel something, real. She'd sit in the passenger seat like she belonged there, watching the snow fall through the glass, speaking in half-thoughts and quiet riddles. One night, I asked again. Where do you go after I drop you off? Home, she said, without looking at me. Do you live near the cemetery? She paused. I used to. I couldn't stop thinking about her. At work. In the shower. On my lunch break. There was something in the way she looked at me, like she knew me. Like we'd met before, long ago, and just forgotten the details. On the 5th night, I got bold. I want to know more about you. She turned her head slowly, those gray eyes locking onto mine. You already know what matters. I don't even know your name. Names are for people who stay, she said, almost to herself. I never stay. Her voice had a finality to it. It was soft, but it ended the conversation. Still, I kept picking her up. Night after night. And every time I dropped her off near that same cemetery gate. Every time, she disappeared into the dark without a glance back. And every time, I felt like I was losing something, just by letting her go. It was the 9th night. By now, picking her up had become second nature. I didn't even think about it anymore, just slowed the car as I neared that stretch, and she'd be waiting. Same spot. Same white dress. Same sad eyes that always made me want to ask more, and always warned me not to. But that night, something was different. She didn't speak. Not even the usual soft hello. She sat stiffly, staring straight ahead, lips pressed into a line. The temperature in the car dropped again, colder than usual. I could see my breath cloud the air. When we reached the cemetery, she looked at me, really looked. This is the last night, she whispered. Last night for what? I asked. But she didn't answer. She opened the door and stepped out, her bare feet silent in the snow. And then, she walked toward the gate. But this time, I didn't drive off. I turned off my lights. Waited a beat. And followed her. The cemetery gate groaned as I pushed it open. Cold metal screamed under my fingertips. Ahead, she moved between the gravestones, her white dress trailing like fog behind her. She wasn't walking. She was gliding. Effortlessly. Like air had hands and was guiding her through the dead. The deeper I followed, the quieter everything got. No wind. No rustling trees. Even the snow didn't crunch under my boots anymore. I stopped behind a large oak, watching as she came to a halt in front of a crumbling stone angel. She raised her hands, and the ground beneath her opened. The snow split like paper, revealing dark, rotting wood beneath. A coffin. And from it, a second hand reached up. Gray. Decomposed. Fingernails black and cracked. I clamped my hand over my mouth. Another figure pulled itself halfway from the grave. A man, or what was once a man, his mouth sewn shut with rusted wire, jaw twitching as he tried to scream. She smiled at him. Then, she turned her head fully around, without moving her body. And stared right at me. Ben, she whispered, but I didn't hear it with my ears. I heard it inside my head. She stepped away from the grave. The man sunk back down, screaming silently. The hole in the earth sealed itself shut with a single crack of ice. Then she began to walk toward me, slow, deliberate, hovering inches above the snow. Her face, it was no longer beautiful. One side of it hung lower than the other, skin sliding like melted wax. Her lips were torn. Her eyes bled down her cheeks like gray rivers. And where her feet should have touched the ground, there were only shadows. You said you wouldn't leave me behind, she said, her voice layered with others. Male, female, young, old, all speaking through her mouth. I backed away. Fast. But every time I blinked, she was closer. Then, right in front of me. She reached out, fingers long and bone white, nails curved like claws. Dance with me, Ben. I turned and ran. My legs were jelly. My heart thrashed against my ribs. The gravestones twisted. Moved. Rearranged. I couldn't find the way out. Every direction led deeper. But I ran anyway. I felt her behind me, not footsteps, but cold. Choking, soul-ripping cold. Just when I thought I'd never escape, I saw it. The gate. I dove through it, fell onto the road, rolled to my feet, and didn't stop running until I reached my car. I drove home in silence. When I arrived, I locked every door. Closed every window. Turned on every light. And I sat on the floor until the sun rose. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Because I knew. She'd be waiting tomorrow. I couldn't let it go. I tried. Tried to push it aside, blame it on exhaustion, stress, maybe even some elaborate hallucination. But the image of her, the way she moved, the way she looked at me in the cemetery, it burrowed into my mind and wouldn't leave. So I started digging. At first, I found the usual, ghost stories, urban legends, blurry photos, half-baked podcasts. But the more I read, the more consistent the tale became. A girl. Name, Mary Lenahan, or Mary Yurchik, depending on who you ask. But always Mary. A girl from the south side of Chicago in the early 1930s. Daughter of Polish immigrants. Loved to dance, especially at the old O. Henry Ballroom, where big bands would play late into the night. One winter evening, she went out with her fiancé. They argued, no one remembers over what. Some say he caught her dancing with another man. Others say she wanted to leave and he didn't. She stormed out into the snow. Alone. Witnesses claimed they saw her walking along Archer Avenue, in her white dress and dancing shoes, trying to flag down a ride. A few miles up the road, a driver hit something. Thought it was a deer. Didn't stop. She was found the next morning, her body mangled, half covered by fresh snow, just outside Resurrection Cemetery. She was buried in that same cemetery 2 days later, still wearing the white dress she'd danced in. But that wasn't the end. Reports started coming in just a few years later. Men driving late at night. Empty roads. Cold wind. A girl in white, standing at the side of the highway. She never aged. She never bled. Some said she'd ask for a ride, only to vanish just as they passed the gates of Resurrection. Others said she never spoke at all, just sat in silence, humming a waltz no one could name. And sometimes, she didn't vanish. Sometimes, she followed them home. Locals stopped picking up hitchhikers on that road. The ballroom burned down years ago, but no one would build on the lot. And to this day, people leave flowers by the cemetery gates, always white. Some say Mary's still looking for the man who left her that night. Others believe she's looking for anyone willing to stay. But no one really knows what she wants. They only know this. Once she rides with you, she doesn't forget you. And eventually, she comes back. I moved. New job. New apartment. New routes. I deleted Archer Avenue from every GPS app one owned. I avoided Chicago's South Side like it was cursed, because maybe it was. For a while, it worked. The nights were quiet again. My thoughts slowed. The dreams stopped. I even convinced myself it had all been stress, trauma, some vivid hallucination. But one day, I worked late. Again. It was raining, hard. My usual route was blocked off. I took a detour without thinking. When the fog lifted off the windshield, I realized exactly where I was. Archer Avenue. My chest tightened. My fingers locked on the wheel. I told myself I wouldn't stop. Even if she was there, even if she stood in the road, I would keep going. But she wasn't in the road. She was already in the car. I saw her in the rearview mirror. Sitting calmly in the back seat. White dress. Dark curls over her shoulders. Those storm gray eyes locked onto mine through the glass. I didn't breathe. Didn't blink. The mirror fogged. The temperature nosedived. My knuckles went white on the steering wheel. Drive, Ben. Her voice was sweet at first. Soft. Beautiful. We still have a dance to finish. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I kept my eyes locked on the road. But then, I saw movement. Not behind me. Beside me. She was in the passenger seat now. And she was still beautiful, at first. Her skin glowed with that same pearly shimmer. Her fingers traced invisible shapes on the frost-covered window. But then she turned her head. And the illusion shattered. Half her face had begun to rot. Skin peeled like old wallpaper. One eye sagged in its socket. Her mouth hung open too wide, a gash lined with too many teeth, broken and blackened. Her dress was soaked in dried blood around the hem. Her hands now clawed and stiff. Like something dead that hadn't realized it yet. You said you wouldn't leave me. Her voice cracked, no longer soft, but layered, like dozens of voices spoke through her at once. You danced with me, Ben. You promised. Her hand shot toward mine, cold and brittle like dead branches. That's when I lost control. The wheel jerked. The car spun. Headlights flashed across trees. Snow exploded through the air, then glass. I woke to the sound of beeping. White walls. Fluorescent lights. IVs. A nurse leaned over me. Blurred face. Sir, you were in an accident. You're going to be okay. I blinked. Tried to speak. My mouth was dry. My lips cracked. Was anyone else in the car? I rasped. She frowned. No. Just you. Lucky to be alive. She turned to leave. But before she did, she paused in the doorway. Oh. There was one strange thing. When they pulled you from the wreck, you were clutching something in your hand. She stepped aside, and a doctor came in, holding it. A single white rose. Frozen. Perfect. Untouched by blood or snow. I'm in the hospital now. Watching the door. Watching the mirror on the wall across from me. It's fogged up, even though the room is warm. And sometimes, I hear music playing. Faint. Warped. Like an old ballroom record spinning somewhere far, far below.